So this next video is going to require a little bit of participation. You can watch this video once through and then practice it at a time that's more appropriate, but if you're in a place that's pretty quiet, you might be in your home, you might be in your office, and it's pretty quiet around you, you can actually practice as you're watching the video for the first time around. So this video is about a practice that I started integrating into my life maybe about 3-4 years ago. Before then I had been doing it, but not with the total awareness that I do it with now. And that practice is known as falling still. So I'm going to talk a little bit about why this practice is powerful and how I use it in my life on a regular basis throughout the day. But first I'm actually going to just take you through the video, through the practice, so that it can set the tone for the words that come after it. So wherever you are, just take an opportunity to sit if you can. Sit down in your chair, sit straight up, but don't have to be a military student or anything. Place your feet flat on the floor. It's important that you're grounded, and it's very rare that people actually place their feet flat on the floor when they're sitting. They're usually kind of curled and things like that. There's an importance to having your feet flat on the floor, and has a lot to do with the subtle energies that are created through this practice. And then take your hands, just gently place them on your knees or wherever you feel. Not that as important, but just rest them. The main thing is that you don't want to keep them in a position where they don't feel comfortable. And then now, just gently close your eyes. Just sit here for a minute, a few seconds rather. And bring your attention to your breath. Just notice your breath. You don't have to do anything fancy. You don't have to do anything special. Just notice your breath. Notice your breath coming in and your breath exhaling out. Just bring awareness to your breath. Notice if your breath is shallow, if it's deep, just notice it. And by noticing it, notice that when you bring attention to your breath, how it kind of corrects itself automatically. Notice if you're breathing from the abdomen, and that when you inhale, your abdomen actually expands. And you exhale, and your abdomen compresses. Thoughts will come and thoughts will go. Just keep bringing your attention and awareness back to your breath. Whatever sounds are happening around you, whatever activities happening around you, just let it be. Keep coming back to your breath. Take a deep breath in. Exhale out. And return. So that was about 45 seconds? That practice of falling still is something that I integrate throughout my life, throughout my day on a regular basis. And before I talk about how I practice it and why I practice it, let me actually share a little quote with you that will help set the tone for why this practice is so useful. So there was a quote that I heard a few years ago from Eckhart Tolle at one of his lectures, and then the quote said, "Your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world." And I'll say that one more time. Your external world is a direct reflection of your internal world. Most people are quite attached to their external reality, the way that the world manifests. This computer here in front of me, my physical body, your physical body, money, all those things are the external world. Nothing wrong with them. They're just an external world that shows up. It's a manifestation of our internal world. And the way that your external world shows up is directly correlated to the way that your internal world shows up. But most people, when they're trying to change their external world, when they're trying to bring abundance into their life, when they're trying to bring beautiful things into their life, when they're trying to enjoy the physical world and the manifestation of the world, they often get caught up in trying to change it or trying to bring influence to it in the external world itself. And if they feel that the external world, the way that the world manifests, their job, their career, their love life, isn't the way that they want it to be, then they often feel like, why is this happening? And it's very rare that people actually bring their attention and their awareness to their internal world. And what do I mean by internal world? We talked about external world. Well, your internal world can be called many different things. It could be called consciousness. It could be called the universe that's inside of you. Some people could refer to as the godhood inside of you, the manifestation of God inside of you. Regardless of what you want to call it, it's that thing that's inside of us that isn't our mind, right? Our mind is one thing, and then there's something deeper that's a lot of people call awareness. And that awareness is this internal world that I referred to. And so this practice of falling still is a practice of bringing stillness to that internal world so that the external world can manifest just as it needs to. So here's what I mean by that. For a long time, I had been practicing traditional meditation, where I woke up in the morning and I tried to meditate for 30 minutes or an hour, and then I'd begin my day. And I wouldn't revisit meditation until, let's say, the next day. The challenge with that is that when I would wake up in the morning and I'd spend 30 minutes meditating, my thoughts would run amok. I couldn't really sit there still, and I would be really disciplined about it, doing it out of sheer determination for 2 weeks, and then, 2 weeks later I would stop the practice. And it didn't feel good. It didn't feel like that was a way to bring a deeper sense of stillness. But because I had read books about all these gurus and monks and different people who had meditated for days on end, and that's how they reached enlightenment, I had this romanticized version of bringing my own version of enlightenment to my life, that as long as I could meditate for this amount of time, then everything else would show up as it needed to. Now, if you do that, there's nothing wrong with that. But what I actually found later on through the teachings of one of my mentor, again, Serrano Kelly, who I mentioned in the eye contact video, is that there's another practice of meditation that tends to work a lot better for individuals, especially in the age that we live in, because of one primary distinction. And that distinction is that meditation is a vehicle. It's not a destination. So the goal isn't to meditate for 30 minutes or an hour, right? The goal isn't to meditate for however long you can meditate. Rather, the goal is to have meditation be a vehicle that brings you to another location, right? And if you're in a place and if your life has a lot of commotion, or there's a lot of things that are happening around you that are related to conditioning of things, or as in the Eastern tradition is referred to as karma, then meditation is a good way to bring stillness. But what most people do is they do that traditional practice of meditation. So they'll meditate for 30 minutes and they'll notice that their thoughts run amok, just as I did. This practice of falling still is a little bit different. Falling still is based on the concept that shorter, more frequent meditations work better for individuals than traditional meditation does, because again, it's not how long you meditate, but how often you enter the place of stillness throughout your day. And so I practice falling still, 45 seconds to 2 minutes of just bringing attention and awareness to my breath throughout the day, and it could be anywhere from 10 to 20 times a day. And how I practice it is actually in between activities. So right before I recorded this video, I actually took an opportunity to fall still before I took you through the falling still practice. And then let's say when I'm done this video, I might take an opportunity to fall still. Or I get in my car and I go somewhere, I take an opportunity to fall still. I usually do it in between activities. And my mentor Serrano taught me that practice as being a good way to stop the conditioning from one activity to be passed over to the next activity. What does that mean?